So Claudia Smith was a 32-year-old Florida resident who shot and killed 21-year-old Ricardo Sands. Now, according to the police report, quote, Smith said he was inside his house on Carter Street when his girlfriend, looking at the outdoor surveillance monitor, spotted somebody in dark clothing walking around his yard, who, well, was last seen climbing over the fence into a neighboring apartment complex. Now, Smith reported having an issue with burglaries in the area, and he believed that this gentleman, that he could not tell who it was responsible. So, according to the police report, Smith told the police that he went outside, got his gun, jumped the fence into that neighboring apartment complex, armed with his .45 caliber handgun, and reportedly had seen Sains looking into the windows of apartments as he walked by. Smith told police that he pulled his gun and confronted the 21-year-old man, and when Sains attempted to walk away, Smith grabbed his hoodie, tried to drag him back to his house so the police could apprehend him. He was essentially trying to do a citizen's arrest. Sains was reported to have punched the guy in the mouth and had tried to grab his gun, prompting Smith to fire 6 shots, killing the young man. Now, a couple of things didn't really add up here. According to the examination of Ricardo's body, there were gunshot wounds on his upper back, pointing to the idea that they weren't doing a face-to-face struggle, that Sains was actually just still walking away. Now, I think this has a lot of similarities to the Trayvon Martin case. I mean, check, hoodies, self-defense, check, recent burglaries, check. But there are some differences. Sains was actually armed himself, the victim, with a .40 caliber handgun that was actually found in his pants. And not only that, but he was shot in the back. Now, Smith faces a charge of second-degree murder and is being held in jail, unlike George Zimmerman, which, as you can remember, a lot of the outrage is the fact that George Zimmerman hadn't even been brought into questioning. And he also claims that self-defense and may even invoke stand your ground. Now, there are some legal analysts that have said about stand your ground, quote, it's available, it's worked, and lawyers and defendants are always testing the elasticity of stand your ground and of self-defense. So, we could see that the defense used, we could see that self-defense was used before to good effect, and that this could factor into that. For example, there was a Miami resident named Grayston Garcia that was declared immune from prosecution for actually doing a similar thing. He chased down and stabbed a man who had stolen his car radio, according to multiple South Florida media reports. Now, a judge ruled that the slain man, Pedro Roteda, had presented a legal threat to Garcia by swinging a bag of radios at his head. Ooh. So even though that person chased down the other that stole his car radio, he could still claim self-defense. But even that's sort of a stretch, as Sains didn't actually steal anything from Smith. Now, according to an affidavit, Smith couldn't even provide a reasonable explanation for fleeing the scene after the shooting and ditching his gun. So it's already not looking good for Smith. According to the affidavit, quote, the defendant claimed not to know who removed the digital recorder or why it was removed. And it's, to me, it seems like the self-defense claim is probably going to fail due to a lot of these different factors. I mean, who knows, right? But what I want to ask is, that if laws like stand your ground actually empower people to chase after quote-unquote suspicious people in their neighborhoods and kill them and use lethal force against them.
We kind of talked earlier in the first story about the media misrepresenting something, obviously with the Fox and the wealthy and yada, yada, yada. This is the same thing. The story here is this going to be the next stand your ground case? Trayvon Martin was not a stand your ground case. They did not use stand your ground in George Zimmerman's defense. But Trayvon Martin was an example. Yes, they did. They did, totally. And it was a clear just lack of justice being done. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that we're coming after stand your ground. Whatever stand your ground has nothing to do with the injustice. We need to come after the injustice. And the injustice here is twofold, both for the victim and I would submit to you uh, possibly for the shooter. And what I mean by that is we're already seeing it. The fact that the guy is already in custody, whereas George Zimmerman was not at this point. I want to show you the difference between Claudius Smith and George Zimmerman. There you have Claudius Smith on the left and Sains on the right. What do you notice about Claudius Smith that was not true of George Zimmerman? He's an African American. So he's in jail right now. If he does not skate on this, and again, I'm not saying I want him to. I think I want him to go to trial, and if the trial comes out that he should skate on this, then by all means. But if we get revealed the same kind of, or if the same type of things are revealed to us that were in the Zimmerman trial, where he should not have been let off, but this guy doesn't get let off, then again, there's a clear point that the Zimmerman trial, race was an issue there. Because you've got a pretty similar situation. Not only do you have a similar situation, but in this case, Ricardo Sains was armed. He was carrying a gun when he got shot. And so if this guy does go to jail or does get prison time, whatever, for shooting, for having, they're both unjustified shootings, or at least they seem to be. Again, we don't know the facts of this case. There hasn't been a trial yet. Where this is America, the guy deserves a trial. But if the cases come out pound for pound equal, this guy, gets found guilty and Zimmerman didn't, then I don't think there's any other conclusion that there's a clear case of racial inequality. But what I do want to harp on, though, is that this is big in gun culture. So, I'm a part of this, being a part, somebody who runs in the gun crowd. Like, if you suspect someone of theft, and they're not even breaking into your house, like, I'm a little more okay, like, with even stand your ground in theory. If someone attacks you, although, again, me and my personal life, I'm not going to reciprocate with deadly force. But again, that's my personal belief. That's not something I can legislate. I don't know that you have to have a duty to retreat. However, that's not the same thing as saying that you do have a constitutional right to chase someone down who is not attacking you.
And threaten them with a gun, by the way, because this is what Smith had done. Claudius Smith had threatened this guy with a gun. Hey, I think you're going to steal my stuff, or it's you breaking into places or whatever. Then
Well, and where I'm going with this is not even a moral argument. It's a logistic legal argument. Because so in this case, both men are armed, or so it seems so far. What the George Zimmerman precedent, and what if this a similar precedent is set here? The precedent that sets is that in the event of a shooting, whoever dies was guilty. Because if it's okay to chase someone down, initiate a confrontation, and then respond with deadly force, then it's just a matter of being the guy who wins the deadly force fight. Because if Sains would have killed Smith, he could have said, Smith started this fight, so I killed him. Since Smith killed Sains, he's saying Sains started this fight, so I killed him. But he created that situation just as George Zimmerman did. That's why, like, the arguments, I don't care how beat up George Zimmerman was, he started the fight with Trayvon Martin. Trayvon Martin was exercising his right to self-defense. He just didn't have a gun, so he didn't kill George Zimmerman. So what we're doing, if we're saying this is a self-defense case, and we're letting people who start confrontations kill people for escalating that confrontation, then what we're saying is people in gun case, whoever can shoot first is the innocent party.
This case is not the same in virtually any way. Like, first of all, the victim or the person who was shot was armed. The shooter is not Hispanic but looking half Hispanic, half white. We don't know what happened. There were 6 gunshots instead of like the one deadly one. Like, we don't know if all of them were in the back or some of them were in the back. He was trying to do a citizen's arrest and the guy was armed. So, like, we don't know. We don't have enough information to call this the next Stand Your Ground case or the next, George Zimmerman case, which is the real implication here. Because, and the guy was arrested right away. So, like, it's really, like, different in almost every single way from the Zimmerman case. Now, Jeff brought up another case about the guy who chased down a guy who stole his radio and stabbed the guy who stole his radio after he swung the bag of radios at him. First of all, I didn't know people still steal car radios. Like, that's new to me. that still happens. But secondly, if somebody steals from you, you're not allowed to chase them down. Like, to me, that's perfectly fair. Like, because they initiated the crime by stealing from you.
So that
So I
allows
think,
you to kill them? For stealing your radio, you're allowed to kill someone.
I mean, I'm not saying you shoot them in the back, right? Because I believe in the
Or
fleeing
stab
felon.
I mean,
But I'm saying,
that shows out the perfect, like the mindset, the perfect mindset that I want to point out is that somehow people's stuff has become more important than people. Dude, get insurance on your car. Let the guy have your fucking radio. Call the insurance company and get a new one.
Yeah, and
yeah,
this is totally a shift in the gun rights conversation because before the justification, and again, why I'm not anti stand your ground on principle, is the idea is when someone breaks into your home, you don't know if they're there to take something non-violently or if they're there to kill your wife and children. So that's why you have a right to use deadly force in your home, and not you don't have to show that you try to retreat. Whenever someone is running away, whenever someone's running away with your radio, you know they are not out to hurt you. You don't have a right to escalate to deadly force.
no,
Yeah,
but
and I agree with you on those both of those points, Jordan. I think that if somebody, is in your home, intent to do you harm, I think you should be allowed to, like it should be a last resort, but you should be able to blast them away. And if they're in your home, that's sort of a last resort.
look, I'm not saying you go kill somebody who steals your radio or like, and the reason I say shoot them in the back because like that's really kind of fucked up. You're shooting them while they're running away. But if somebody steals something from you, I think it's perfectly fine for you to go chase them down. And then if they try and fight you off, like that's not your fault for starting the fight. They started it by committing a crime against you. I don't think you have like that's the problem I have with this duty to flee thing is I don't think you have a legal obligation to surrender your property, anything like that. I think you should be able to chase somebody down if you
But at
wanted
what
to chase
cost?
them down.
I mean, but at what cost? I mean, if somebody steals.
So if I see someone
you have the right to
someone
shoot 'em.
texting in the movie theater, they're breaking the rules and disrupting my movie experience. I have a
That's
right to
rule.
confront them and
It's not
shoot
a
them.
law.
It doesn't mean
You're comparing a rule to a law, and
Okay.
like I said,
Somebody's jaywalking. I have to pump my brakes. Then I get to get out and confront them. And then if it escalates, shoot them. No, man. This is why we have law enforcement.
If you confront a jaywalker and like he pulled a weapon on you, like you can't be like, okay, I guess you're gonna stab me. I'm not saying that you go start a fight, but you have a right to stop yourself from being a victim of a crime. Like, I mean, to me, that's like logical. If somebody steals something from you, you could chase them down. Because what happens if, like, chances are there won't be a fight? Like, of course you have the right to retrieve your property.
See,
like, what if somebody kidnaps a kid? You're gonna be like, oh well, I can't chase him down because
No, because that's the point. Threat to life. We've already said if you're threatening a life, we're okay with you using this deadly force.
Yeah.
If somebody is
I'm not even
stealing
talking
your
about
car
deadly
radio.
force. I'm just talking about situationally. Like you should. I'm not saying anything about deadly force. I'm just saying that you have the right to chase down somebody who steals from you, right? And then if you get into a fight, then that's like not your fault that you're in that situation.
It kind of is though.
If you get what I'm
chase
saying.
them down.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the problems that I have is that in like there's only, as far as I'm aware, in most of the countries in the world, there's only America and Germany that have stand your ground laws. Like, what are like legal questions I always have is when does the standing part take effect? But I mean, like here in the UK, we have kind of a castle doctrine, which is similar to self-defense. But because we don't have that many guns here, when you do defend yourself, if you're using a knife or a blunt instrument or something, okay, you might whack someone over the head and knock them out. And you might cause a brain aneurysm and stuff. But more often than not, you're probably going to just knock them out cold. You're going to wound them somehow. You're going to cut them, but they're probably not going to die. Because so many people in America have guns, when self-defense is enacted in any situation, whether you are right to defend yourself, or you are right to chase down a criminal who's stolen your radios, even if in fact the type of weapon or the method of self-defense that you have is a gun in most cases, that's the reason why there's so many of these problems. Is because it is going to end to more deaths in self-defense because you have a tool that is just made for, well, I know that Jordan argued that it's also used for hunting, but in self-defense, it's just used for killing people. And that's the problem that I have in these situations.
Well, and let me also to kind of redirect the conversation. Not that Sean didn't raise some valid points. Obviously, I disagree with him, but I think he's got a solid, he's got ground to stand on in his argument.
He can stand his ground.
But you are so the Cenk Uygur TYT community. But anyway, but in the Trayvon Martin case, and as far as we know, again, the facts are not out, but as far as we know from the reporting in this case as well, these kids had not committed crimes. The people thought they might be party to a crime, chased them down, and confronted them. So do you have a right then? Like,
it seems like it's vigilant. Like he was attempting to do vigilante justice.
It's guilty until proven innocent.
Yeah, not only is it vigilante justice, it's vigilante against someone you don't even know is a criminal.
Right. Like I don't think you have the right to chase random people for random reasons, but I think if you're the victim of a crime, you have the right, like you could stop, call the police, or you could follow him, or you could try and confront him, or you could follow him and call the police. Like you don't there's no reason why like you should never go in the same direction as the person who just robbed you or whatever. Like I think you have a right to retrieve your property and defend yourself.
Okay, so you know what, Sean? I'll go ahead and I'll concede that in the case of the radio, I think it's stupid and it's not the route you should take. But from a purely legal standpoint, all right, there was clearly a crime committed. You're trying to retrieve your property. I think it's a dumb idea, and it shows how screwed up our values are. But okay, you've got legal ground to stand on until that law is changed. However, in the story we're talking about here, there was no crime committed. There was a suspicion of crime by a non-law enforcement individual who chased someone down and confronted him with a gun.
Right.
Twice.
And to me, that's why that's not a citizen's arrest that went wrong based on the limited facts that we know. That's the only similarity between this and the Zimmerman case is that there was no actual crime that he was chasing him for. So that's why I grouped this in a separate category.